Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another C3 Foundation live stream. How is everybody doing today? I see we've got a few people sitting out there waiting for us to start, which is awesome. Hey, Nat. Hey, Ramus. Good to see you guys. Mudforce. How's everybody feeling tonight? Has anybody had a good success to start their week before Claudia and I get started on successes? Oh, we got N. Smith and Brenda out there. Thanks for joining us today. Love Pug Dugs. That's a cool name. Mudforce has got a second COVID jab tomorrow, so that's getting those scheduled can be quite the success. All right, so we'll give people a couple more minutes. Any good successes for you today, Claudia, or this week?
Let's see. I've had a couple wonky days, and I'm blaming it on that super moon, that pink moon. I'm blaming everything on that. I really wanted to get organized and get rid of some stuff, and I cleaned out my recording studio because I've been using it more for voiceover auditions, and managed to spill water all over my equipment and
Oh no.
and a beautiful Whistler print that my father gave me. So that was fun. That was not a success, but success. Today I did 10 miles on my bike despite having a lot of leg pain. So that was a success. Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling kind of hopeful, but how would I explain this? I feel like I'm in neutral, that nothing is going forward and nothing's necessarily going back. I feel like I'm static, and that's not the way I enjoy being at all.
It can be uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable, but I'm really practicing mindfulness to remind myself that life is about the moments when something is not happening tomorrow, or it's not about packing for the trip. It's about right now appreciating what we have and where we are in life, and appreciating things like health, or it's been an exercise for me because I'm impatient and I love to be busy, and I'm busy with stuff that I'm not necessarily loving right now. A lot of paperwork and a lot of editing and a lot of just stuff that I'm minutia that I don't particularly like. It's not glamorous or fun, but hell, that's what life is. You got to take care of the crappy jobs. Life is not all, guest leads and voiceover work. It's a lot of crappy stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's got its ups, it's got its downs. While you were talking, Annette joined us, as well as N. Smith and Joy, or N. Smith was already there, but Joyce. N. Smith has a great success to share. Said, after losing nearly everything a year ago from alcohol, tomorrow I close on a house.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. That is a huge success story. Wow. It's like a country and western song in reverse.
Right?
Get your house back, get your relationships back, get your money back. It's amazing what can happen when you get your drinking under control. So bravo for you.
Yeah, that's that is amazing. That is awesome. Yeah, I was kind of feeling like you coming into this week, Claudia, especially after the weekend. Yeah, I had one of the weekends where I had a headache for almost all of it, and I did a lot of sitting around on the couch doing nothing but thinking about all the things that were not getting done. And it was really kind of frustrating because I had big plans for cleaning the house. I had the house to myself all weekend, so I was going to bake, and I was going to go grocery shopping, and I was going to clean, and I was going to do all these things, and instead I just sat there binge watching Killjoys because I just couldn't get off the couch.
That's what you needed this weekend, so don't worry about it.
But then I mean, you and I know how much goes into preparing for these streams. They don't just happen as much as I would love them to just, oh, hey, let's log on and just start talking. A lot of preparation goes into these. And so, I've been going through the social media peer support pages and looking for success stories and talking to people and asking if we can share their stories. And I was going through, I have a file in my email that's literally just successes. Some of those are ones that have been shared confidentially with us and were not for resharing or retelling. And some of them were written for our old website when we had a testimonials. And some came in afterward that were for us to share whenever we had the chance. Some of them did, some of them didn't get shared. And so it was amazing to me. I mean, I sent you, what was it, 16 pages, you said, of success stories that we've got for working on today. But what amazed me, going back through almost 8 years of emails, for every success story that I found that we had permission to share, there are at least 20 in my email that were just private success stories. Just, this is such a small little snippet of some of the amazing stuff that people have taken the time to write to us.
Yeah, I wish I in a perfect world it would be posted everywhere, but I understand people's need for privacy. And if I had to count, literally at least 3-4 times a week, I get an email from someone saying, wow, your advocacy changed my life for the, we from all over the world. So, that shouldn't dissuade people who are having a difficult time on TSM. They, not everybody's journey is linear or perfect, but it should give you hope. And that's what we hope for, is that it gives you some inspiration and some hope, because for the majority of people out there who try this method, it really is successful. And I'm keen to read some of these success stories, because as I was browsing through them, I didn't, a lot of them I haven't read before. So, but I did find things that certainly I could relate to.
Yeah, I became so energized getting ready for this and going through all of those emails and all of those successes, both small and large. I mean, some of them are just absolutely 180 life-changing, and some of them are simply so personal and just, I never would have been this way before. Thank you so much. And so I'm excited. And so I see Love Pug Doug says, I'm frustrated because my psychiatrist has advised me to go sober while taking naltrexone, and I'm not following him. I'm drinking an hour after naltrexone. But if I tell my doctor I'm drinking, they'll cut me off. How frustrating do you think this is?
It's very frustrating. And of course, we're not giving medical advice here, and we're not telling you to lie to your medical provider. But in this case, I'm afraid you're not alone in this circumstance. I've had people with their general practitioners tell them that, they can only give the prescription if they promise to be sober. And the individual did TSM behind their doctor's back. And at the end of it, when they found another supply of naltrexone, they actually went back to their GP and said, look, I didn't listen to you. I did it the targeted manner, in a targeted manner, and I have dropped my drinking by 80%. So you should learn about this and tell your patients about it. But they did have a backup prescription for naltrexone. So do what's right for you, do what feels good, and just make sure you always comply and stick to it.
So as you and I were talking, I found a way to switch our order on the thing so that it doesn't look like I'm looking off screen. For those of you who have watched for a while, you'll notice that my background's a little bit different, and I've switched things around so I can actually see the chat and not have it all blocked by my microphone equipment. So I I figure if me looking off the screen was bugging me, it was probably bugging somebody else out there too. So, do you want to get started, Claudia?
Yeah.
I'll let you start with. Why don't you choose one of the success stories, one of the stories from Journeys, and for anybody who's not familiar, Journeys. Which I have. Oh, you've got yours, of course, because you're reading from it. I have autographed versions here in the C3 office that you can order directly through C3 Foundation. Claudia got these for us and donated them, and they're all signed. So if you'd like a copy for yourself, definitely go to our website after the stream and grab one.
I have well, the two that I was going to read from Journeys are short, and they're one is a not success story and one is a success story. But I was going to start with Erin. You don't want me
to? Yeah. And Erin's is actually two different posts that she made in our Facebook group. And I believe the second paragraph is actually the older one.
Okay. Well, I liked it because I identified with it. So
I'll let you take it away then.
All right. Before TSM, anytime I did anything, I had to stop by the liquor store first, so I would have shooters in my bag and ready to go. Didn't matter what I was doing, and they never lasted, and there was never enough. It was the first thing I thought about in the morning and what put me to sleep at night. This just seems totally insane to me now. The crippling anxiety I felt about running out of alcohol or not being buzzed is losing its hold on me. It's not gone. I drank through the now last week and had more than I have been having, but it was still like a fraction of what I would have had on a typical day before. No blackout, no waking up and starting all over, no crippling fear, pacing around wondering what I did. So this isn't a quick fix. It's taking more work than I thought. More personal development, more running, and more honesty. All I know is I am different. I am becoming who I want to be and not someone who's drunk all the time. It's still hard. I still miss being buzzed from time to time, but I'm not giving up. My husband and I have been on road trips through California for 10 days. This is the best I've ever done on a vacation or traveling in my adult drinking life. I am training for a half marathon in June and have been able to get up early and keep up with all of my scheduled runs. 2 months of TSM has transformed me into a moderate drinker. 2 nights ago, I stopped after 1 glass of wine and opted for water. Last night, I didn't even bother with a drink. Never would that have happened before, not in a million years. I've been 100% compliant since starting my TSM journey, and the results are undeniable. My husband said I'm the very best version of myself since starting this. I can't wait to see where I go from here. Keep the faith, people. I've found the answer to all the desperate prayers I prayed in my years of struggling with alcohol. This one touched me in so many ways. First of all, the absolute obsession, the buying alcohol, making sure you have alcohol all the time. And also just getting your life back. She's back running again. She took a trip. The road trip really touched me. And of course, her husband saying that she's the very best version of herself. That is just that. This story touched me so much.
Yeah, that was really that, best version of herself was what drew me to this, to seek her out, to ask if we could share this, because that's the point. We want to help people who are using the Sinclair Method to find their way to be the best version of who they want to be.
Yeah. No, it's just a lovely inspirational story, just pure inspiration. And, not all perfect. You have bumps in the road. That's another reason why I appreciated this, is the honesty of saying, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, as we say.
Yeah, still missing the feeling of being buzzed from time to time.
Totally.
And that's normal and that's okay.
Yeah, because you had a long-term relationship with it. It's like some people say it's like breaking up with a lover, and you'll miss that lover even though that lover was really bad in your life.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to do another one?
Well, I'll go ahead and grab Paul's.
Okay.
And so Paul wrote, "Hi, my name is Paul, and I'm AUD." Hi, Paul. I'm 58 and started drinking heavily at age 17. So it was 40 years in and out of AA meetings, failed relationships, constant cravings for alcohol, and generally just hating myself before I found TSM. I had very little control over my drinking, often drinking every day, but I could sometimes go for weeks at a time until inevitably binge drinking myself into oblivion. The very first time I took naltrexone, I noticed the difference. I popped my pill in the parking lot right after work, but then got stuck in Baltimore traffic, so it was an hour and a half until I got home. I cracked open a nice cold IPA and drank it right down. Nothing. I opened another one as I started making my dinner. The physical drunk feeling was still there, but the feeling of well-being, the brain buzz, the morphine-like high, it just wasn't there. All that was left was the physical drunk. It really sucked. I struggled to finish most of the second one and then poured the remainder down the drain. I thought about flushing those little pills that first day, but instead I remained 100% compliant despite some initial side effects that vanished after a week. My cravings got less intense pretty quickly. And then, after the honeymoon, I experienced the normal roller coaster ride of TSM. But always there was the now. Somewhere around 3 months into TSM, I went to the liquor store and I realized that something was now missing. The excitement I used to get from just buying liquor. The little tingle I'd get knowing I was about to get drunk just wasn't there anymore. It came as a complete shocker because I had never noticed it was even there until it was gone. During my 4th month, I was staying at my boss's apartment in Manhattan, and I turned down free beer and booze. Top shelf stuff, not crap. Because I just didn't feel like drinking. Holy effing shit. That was the first in 40 years. Somewhere around the 5th month, I experienced what some call an extinction burst. My body took my brain hostage and demanded that I drink until the buzz returned. I was not in control at all that night. I drank and drank and drank until I was sick. But thanks to the naltrexone, the buzz did not in fact return. After that, my body just seemed to accept that the buzz was not coming back, and then the cravings were just gone. I had eliminated my cravings and declared extinction relatively quickly as an early responder, and my life was good. Then months later, COVID struck, and like everyone else, I was stuck at home for months at a time. I started drinking more again, but ran out of pills quickly. I started drinking non-compliantly, and surprisingly fast, I was back to my old self. I hated it. A few months ago, I gathered myself up and teleconferenced with a new doctor for a new prescription. I had to explain TSM all over again to her, as she'd never heard of it before. But I'm back on my meds now. I still get some cravings. My body will quietly whisper in my ear, "A drink would be really good right now, right?" So I will reach for my pills, and my body says, "Damn it, never mind," and the cravings pass. Just the intention of taking my pill now can quiet the cravings because my body knows it won't be getting the endorphin buzz it really wants. I'm back to 100% compliance. Today is now day 5, alcohol-free with no cravings whatsoever. I've got beer and rum that I bought last week still in my cupboard, but no real desire to drink them. I'm keeping them for guests once I can have people over again. Or maybe for myself if I feel like having a drink after work one day. An hour after naltrexone, of course. This has been a miracle for me. I hope this helps someone out there who might be struggling. If you're hearing this and wondering if TSM might work for you, or might work as well for you, all I can say is try it. Trust the science. It works.
That's great. And I love the fact that he got back on the horse, um, and that he, notes that he learned the behavior very quickly again. Um, and, I want to point out that it is human nature to test things. Everybody thinks that they can do things a little bit better their way. And that's the majority of people really do. Um, there's a certain type of personality that likes to adjust everything to suit themselves. They just cannot follow rules. And that is a very, very atypical type of personality that I work with a lot. They'll say, well, what if I just take it at noon and then, just so I remember to take it, and then I'll just drink at 8. And I'm like, if we can just follow these very simple rules, it's gonna be so much easier. And I love the fact that he notes that lizard will tell you don't need. He knew what was he's setting himself up for. You run out of pills during COVID. There's the excuse. That's the lizard getting back in and saying, okay, now we can drink without the pills because you don't have any medication and it's COVID. That is this insidious nature of addiction. So I'm really happy that he wrote that testimonial because it hits on so many different issues.
And again, one of the wonderful things about this story as well is this wasn't necessarily written to be a testimonial. This was written in one of the peer support groups just because he felt compelled to try to help other people by sharing his story. This was somebody that, that I sought out and said, hey, this is an amazing story. Can we use it? So it was a natural thing for him because this wasn't written with the intention that someone was going to, read it live and share it with the world. This was just his core authenticity and his desire to help everybody else understand the good, the bad, the ugly, and the value of making sure that every single time you're following that medication adherence of, making sure you take that medication before you drink.
Yeah. No, thank you, Paul. That was awesome. That was really good. Okay. Should I go to Jaya?
Sure.
Should we jump to Jaya?
Sure.
I can't seem to get over the success I've been able to achieve with TSM. It took me 16 months. There were times I thought this isn't going to work for me. There's times I wanted to drink without now. There's a lot of ups and downs that I went through, but I drank myself sober by staying compliant and sticking with the process. I believed one thing: I have nothing to lose in trying. And this is so much easier than just fighting to abstain. I thought for sure I was a fast responder and would see my results as fast as 2 months. And then 2 months passed and I was barely getting over side effects. Then 4 months passed and I thought, okay, 5 months then. I didn't have a therapist or someone I was professionally confiding in or receiving guidance. I was merely taking the pill at least 1 hour before drinking. I learned that 2 hours was my sweet spot and making sure to eat a substantial meal. And I was doing this pretty much every single night. I found AF days a struggle, and once I did achieve an AF day, I couldn't string together another one. It's been a journey, a process. I imagined that if I did ever achieve extinction, I would be elated with freedom and happiness. I would feel like I was walking in the clouds. I would feel like celebrating this success constantly. I am extinct now, and I don't feel anything extraordinary, but I know it. It's strange because when it happens, it just happens, but you have to work for it. You can't think it's always just easy and go with the flow. I finally achieved it by getting a little uncomfortable. I tried Annie's 30-day alcohol-free challenge. The first 10 days were uncomfortable, but nothing terrible. And then the miracle started to gain momentum. Here I am 4 months later. I have given myself permission to drink several times, and I have chosen not to. I have been fearful of what will happen if I choose to again. Will I fall back again into my old oblivion again? Well, TSMers, my day came. I went for dinner and arrived to a bottle of Camus. Only a few months ago, this bottle, or even the thought of something so divine as a fancy as hell bottle of red wine, would have had me spinning, salivating. On this particular night, I sat at dinner and sipped my wine compliantly. I enjoyed my dinner just as much as I enjoyed my wine. And I didn't run off to the liquor store on my way home. And get this, I was even gifted the rest of the bottle to take home. It has been 10 days and the freaking bottle is still sitting in my pantry because I just don't feel like it. What the? It is amazing. So I want to share all this because damn, it just feels so good. Extinction is just as sweet as it sounds. Love to you all.
I feel like her story has everything in it. It's got that initial over over expectation level of okay, because we seem to see a lot of two particular sets of people, the one who are completely certain this is just not going to work for them, but they're going to give it a try anyway, and the people who are like, oh, I got this, and then it's not immediate, and and it's the deer in the headlights, the panic. And the thing is, she stuck with it.
Yeah, she stuck with it for 16 months and admits that it wasn't easy. And I love that because, a lot of people do have an easier time of it, but the ones who hang in there and can rationally say, okay, this is really hard, but so was drinking to excess and misusing alcohol. And they're rational enough to judge those two experiences and say, you know what, I'm going to just stick this out a little bit longer. I love that stick-to-itiveness. I love that that she was compassionate with herself and admitted that it was hard. I love everything about that story. And I love the wine story, taking the Camus home, because that's a really good bottle of red wine and having it sit in the pantry. I've had to throw, when I was still drinking on TSM, I would have to throw wine down the sink because I couldn't even use it for cooking anymore. And I would laugh thinking, oh my God, in a previous lifetime, this never would have happened. So I related to that as well.
Yeah, it's and it was also interesting how she described feeling when she realized she was at extinction and that she had that freedom and was no longer under the control of alcohol, but that the tables had turned and it was her choices now. But she, so, it was just this kind of like you described in our segment on what extinction is last week. It's not necessarily an extraordinary, you feel different, especially because of how it happens gradually over time.
Right.
But that she knew.
Well, that's the thing is there's a recognition of your brain changing back to normal. And I think that's the only way I can really state it, is that you recognize that you're not thinking of alcohol. And some people will argue, well, the fact that you recognize it means you are thinking of alcohol. But that's really not what it is. It's suddenly you realize days have passed and you have had no inkling to drink. And that's, it's not a aha moment like what, like I had necessarily when I drove by the billboard, but that was just a moment of knowing that didn't trigger me.
Right.
And it felt like I was healed. So whatever it is to you, being mindful and recognizing it, and even jotting it down, and we talk about small wins all the time. These little wins can they can add up to absolute extinction. Leaving behind some wine, going over to a friend's house, listen to Paul, going to his boss's house and having all this free top shelf alcohol at his disposal and saying, I don't feel like drinking. When does that happen for an alcoholic? It just doesn't.
Right,
happen.
Because there are people who will tell you that it's impossible.
Exactly.
But yet, story after story, person after person, we know that it is possible.
Totally.
And the other thing that really stood out about her story was the fact that it was the short period of sobriety and the fear that even with TSM, that first drink again after going for a while, because we see that a lot. People will struggle for the first alcohol-free day. Then they start to struggle to string more than one together.
Mhm.
And then suddenly they'll find that, oh, wait, it's been a month or two and I haven't had any alcohol. And there's that little thing in the back of their brain that says, I'm so afraid to undo the good that I've done so far. What happens if I drink, even if I'm following the medication protocol? Is it going to all come undone? And that just, it's such a common fear.
Yeah.
Because people want it to work and they care and they really do want and embrace recovery, even though this is not a sobriety-based traditional method of finding it.
Yeah, it's the guilt too. It's if you've got 3 months of sobriety under your belt, it takes a mind adjustment to say, yeah, but it's normal. I'm going to a party or a wedding where I normally would have imbibed, and I feel like it. And to accept that and say, okay, you genuinely feel like it. It's something you want to do, and you're going to do it safely by complying. But it's really hard for that guilt brain, that shame brain, to wrap their head around the fact that you can have your cake and eat it too, that you're allowed to, you have permission to, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're falling back into bad habits. It means that you're making a logical choice and you are complying and you're being mindful.
And that's the other thing that I find myself telling people a lot and reminding them is, if you're following the protocol, if you've had a period of sobriety and you drink again on using the protocol, there's no back to day one. You're not losing progress.
Yeah.
This is just another day in the life of TSM.
Yeah, there's no chips being taken away, as we always say. You're just doing TSM.
Yeah. You know, that's the point. You've made a choice and you take your medication and you remain in control.
Yep.
And that's what it's all about.
I agree.
So I'll take the next one here. This was an anonymous one that came through our email a while back. And it said, since starting the Sinclair Method 10 months ago, my drinking has gone from 220 units a month for many years to around 20 units a month consistently now. I also added trigger and urges therapy, hypnosis, and moderation techniques, which helped fix the psychological component. Online forums certainly helped too. No white knuckling, labeling myself as an alcoholic, or forced abstinence. Whether I choose to drink moderately or not drink at all is totally up to me. How great is that? The Sinclair approach is the key to my success. Thank you for this fantastic discovery.
Yeah, that just goes to show you the importance of being able to choose, especially in a society that has dictated abstinence-based treatment for so many years. So just the ability to choose, once you relieve yourself of that pressure of not having a choice, it's interesting because some people will revel in it and they'll drink a lot. And then slowly but surely the newness of being able to choose to drink wears off and it's not as exciting as it was before. And a lot of times those people who choice was such an important issue, they'll go sober, like me. I mean, I absolutely, part of the biggest issue for me was being told I could never drink again in my life. That was, to me, that was like, there's no way, you can't tell me that. There has to be a way around this. And once that newness of that was gone, it was like, okay, I can. Question is, do you want to?
Yeah, I kind of think of it in some ways as when you're young and you get your driver's license for the first time. You want to drive everywhere. You want to drive everywhere, and you do not want anyone telling you that you can't drive. Well, 10 years later, if someone's like,
I'll take you.
Hey, I'll drive. You're like, yeah, go for it. I don't really feel like dealing with this traffic anyway. I'll sit in the passenger seat because the newness is gone, and it's become it's just another part of life. And it has, and what an amazing thing when you consider for how many decades it was strictly, you can't, an alcoholic can't return to moderate drinking. It just can't happen. And so to actually be able to see it's such an amazing thing. I mean, I remember that probably one of the most important times when I had first met you and had just started working with C3. I think I'd only been working with you for a few months. You were at a convention in Texas somewhere, and we went out for sushi. And you literally had three of us split one large sake, and that was it. And it's like, okay, I've just seen with my own eyes that a so-called alcoholic can have one drink. What am I going to believe? I'm going to believe what I see with my own eyes.
Yeah.
You know, and so when all of that, it can't be done, happen, that was before we had brain imaging. We didn't know what, what our like gene recognition for the breakdown of all of the biological and neurological aspects that are now a core part of trying to understand addiction. Those weren't even fields of science yet.
No.
So it was correct at one time, but thankfully science has moved us past that.
Yeah, thankfully is right for so many people, including a lot of these people. Shall I go to Randy?
Sure.
I recall having my first beer in the back seat of a VW Bug at the age of 15. I will turn 62 a little later this year. During the past 46 years, I was never a binge drinker, but I was a consistent drinker. On average, for the past umpteen years or so, I would average 8 to 11 units of alcohol a night. I typically did not drink during the day, except on occasional holidays or when engaged in a conducive weekend activity. I rarely got falling down drunk, though in all those years of drinking, I did have my moments, my embarrassing moments. I guess I was classified as a functional alcoholic. I was married, had 2 children, got divorced, got married, got divorced, and got married for the 3rd time. I exercise, am fit, hike, and run marathons. I spent 37 years in a corporate career, much of it in personal management, where I was afforded an opportunity to be educated on managing alcohol drug-dependent employees. I provided job-related, alcohol drug-related counseling and sent multiple employees through alcohol and drug rehabilitation. I terminated employees for their alcohol and drug use. And all that time, I knew I was an alcoholic. I did not deny it to myself. Over the years, I've tried AA, white knuckling, tapering, different alcohol, religion, etc. Alcohol was always a part of my adult life. I spent countless hours reading and searching the internet, looking for help to stop drinking without succumbing to a 12-step program, which from experience I knew was not the answer for me. For over 40 years, I knew I drank too much, too often, too consistently. I can only thank fate that I never injured or killed another person driving drunk before I became aware of naltrexone and the Sinclair Method this past July 2014. I was driving home one late July afternoon after a hike at a local national park. The local NPR station was broadcasting an interview with a lady whose name I don't recall, talking about Finland and a doctor named Sinclair and something about alcohol addiction. I started to pay attention, and that's the way it started. As soon as I got home, I put Google to work and started researching and reading every single thing I could about Dr. David Sinclair, the Sinclair Method, naltrexone, and Dr. Roy Escapa's book, The Cure for Alcoholism, the medically proven way to eliminate alcohol addiction. I bought the book, I read it, cover to cover immediately. It made logical sense, well understand. I wanted it to make sense. The only reference I had to endorphin release was based on exercise and running. I had no clue about opiate blockers. Next step, I called my doctor and requested a telephone consultation. When we spoke, I briefly explained what I was up to and asked if he'd write me an RX for naltrexone. He'd never heard of naltrexone. He certainly never heard of TSM, Dr. Sinclair, Dr. Escapa, and very possibly NPR. However, he was willing to do some research and get back to me. He called back and we set up an appointment. He agreed to write the prescription with the condition that because the AMA journal prescribes naltrexone should be daily taken with alcohol abstinence, he would have to write the script with those conditions. From reading Dr. Escapa's book, I understood the AMA conditions and was prepared and simply accepted the doctor's recommendation. He also wanted me to get a liver blood test before starting naltrexone, and 1 month into the program. Agreeing to all of that, I was on my way to pick up my first bottle of naltrexone and a journal pad to record my progress. Fast forward 7.5 months later, I have a drink maybe once or twice a month, or I don't. And typically when I do, it's because I'm out to dinner with my wife and I enjoy the taste of wine with dinner, or at a gathering with friends. My alcohol is pretty much zero. To have that second drink after I do have the first one is absolutely zero. I have not had any great epiphanies, revelations, or out-of-body experiences. I don't run faster or longer. I'm not funnier, hungrier, fatter, or skinnier. I am simply no longer dependent on alcohol. I'm also not a statistical threat to other drivers on the road when I'm returning home after having dinner out, though I do wake in the morning with a clear head, which is a huge benefit. And I don't spend hundreds of dollars a month any longer on alcohol beverages. And speaking of money, formal rehabilitation treatment programs as a whole cost thousands of dollars and have a relatively very low success rate, and revamped visits are not free. AA, granted, is less expensive, requires abstinence, spilling your guts for sins you committed when you were 12, and again, has a very low success statistic. To date, including a subsequent prescription supply of naltrexone, which is because I only take one pill 1 hour before I have a drink, I have spent about $172. Naltrexone, TSM, Dr. Sinclair, Dr. Escapa, and the good people at C3 have provided me and are providing you with an opportunity to stop having alcohol control your life. It works, regardless of all the rationalizations, naysayers, innuendos, and people who profess abstinence is the only way. Naltrexone works. Yes, you have to be ready and want to control your drinking. You have to want naltrexone to work, but at least give it a chance. The clinical and physical evidence is there. It's your choice. Good luck, and may you enjoy your newfound independence from alcohol as much as I have.
Yeah, I remember when he wrote that for us, and just being flabbergasted that, because I think that was a period of like over 2 years, he spent less than $200 or something like that.
Yeah, $172 to basically put that lizard in remission. It's quite remarkable. And imagine if somebody's drinking as much as he was drinking, what he saved on alcohol. That's, add that up.
Right.
I love the fact that he really was very human and humble about him chastising employees and firing them. And yet he knew in his head and heart that he too was an alcoholic.
Well, and I think that touches on one of my least favorite myths is the whole alcoholics are in denial. And because no, just because they're not leveling with you about the extent of the problem and
right.
How much they're drinking does not mean that when they close their eyes at night and they're all alone, that they don't know what's really going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We know exactly what we're doing, and the shame and everything builds up. But you're right, Jenny. Are we going to admit to our loved ones, oh yeah, I had exactly 15 glasses of wine? No, you're going to say, I just had a few. And then they label you a liar.
Yeah.
What circumstance are you comfortable enough to be completely honest? There are some people that I work with that have amazing support systems where they can be totally honest with their loved ones and say, you know what, I overdid it last night. Look at the bottle and how much is left. There's other people who have to tiptoe around this because they're not ready to be completely honest, and that's okay.
Well, when you're in the throes of addiction and it's active in your life, you are already so vulnerable. Trying to open up at that level that's a level of vulnerability to even say to another human being, I need help.
Yeah.
A lot of people just don't have the emotional bandwidth left to even put themselves out there like that. And, and so like you, I love that he articulated the fact that Oh yeah, he understood the irony of his situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Totally. And
didn't sit well with him.
no, no. In fact, you never know by being that honest that perhaps he, pays it forward and tells other people about this method. Clearly he's very self-aware.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing to be. I love when he said, I didn't have any epiphanies. I didn't become any different or funnier. But recognizing what I did become was no longer dependent on alcohol. And that's just that trickles down to every avenue of your life. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that was a beautiful story.
So I've got one that was a late edition that you haven't even seen yet, I don't think. So I'm just going to use the first initial B. And she says, I'm calling it. I am calling extinction. I heard about TSM in July 2018. I did not follow the protocol and follow up like I should have. Then in March 2019, I decided to do it again and be strict. It's been a roller coaster of a time, and I've been sitting back watching this group and the old group from the sidelines, worried if I'd ever hit extinction. But I trusted the process, took suggestions of those before me, and never gave up. There was a honeymoon phase in the beginning, drinking through the now, sometimes in the middle, a few binges. But I picked myself back up, switched to beer. So here's to extinction. I have no desire or want to drink at all. I'm not bothered by my past mistakes. I'm proud of where I am today. It took a year and a half, but I have been sober for 15 days, including one of my previously favorite drinking holidays, Christmas. I've never been this sober outside of a treatment facility since probably age 16. I'm 33 now. I know New Year's is right around the corner, but I don't even want to drink. I have so much more time, and I feel great. I used an online doctor because my PCP refused to prescribe. Through the pandemic, I'm entering 2021 a new person. Without Claudia Christian's TED Talk that I just happened to stumble on, my 13 and 10-year-old would have lost their mother to jails, institutions, or death. That TED Talk and movie changed my life, and I will forever spread the word of now. I also put all my Amazon smiles to the C3 Foundation. Oh, did I mention my husband also stopped drinking when I did? Thanks for letting me share. I did this with no outside recovery groups, just you guys, meaning our Facebook peer support pages, and the science of one little pill. Take the pill. Wait 1 hour. By the way, I was a blackout drinker almost every time. Daily drinker, morning drinker, D-tier, been to detox 4 times, 90-day rehab once, AA, NA, CR. During withdrawal, I would experience hallucinations, visual and audible. In 2016, I quit cold turkey and I had a grand mal seizure in the middle of Walmart. I had 1 DUI and 5 other alcohol-related arrests. I drank liquor mostly. But when I switched to beer, I could kill a 24 or 30 in a day. I drank before work, court, everything. So if you can relate, that's the kind of drinking I did.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, I hope that reaches somebody who really thinks that they're too far gone. Because there are so many people who say, it'll never help me. I'm drinking around the clock. I mean, look at this example of an individual who, and by the way, it wasn't a linear, perfect progress either. Got back on that horse and tried it again. I mean, and to go for the fear. Can you imagine the fear of taking that tablet and saying, I'm going to drink again, and I could literally have another grand mal seizure? I mean, that's where I was as well. And I understand exactly that I have nothing to lose because I'm going to die anyway feeling. And that is really profound. What a wonderful story.
And that was something that I noticed in both a lot of the stories that I pulled out for today and some that were not for sharing, was the sense of what do I have to lose at this point? Because
Yeah, you're desperate. You're literally desperate. You've tried everything, and yeah, and you know that you're going to relapse. That's the thing is, if you've chronically relapsed for years and years and years, and you know your pattern of cravings, then of course you know it. You're not going to suddenly, get through this DT and detox and then suddenly go, oh, I'm never going to drink again. You know it's coming. It's like tax season. It's going to come no matter what.
yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking as someone that was the only thing I accomplished this weekend was finally getting my stuff to my accountant. Yeah, I can relate to that one a little bit too much right now.
That's a good one. All right, we have let's see. I've got Brooks, Josh, another anonymous one, couple anonymous ones. Tony, who would you like me to read?
Take whichever one you want.
I don't know. Well, I'll just take an easy one.
Okay.
I'll take Tony. I haven't read Tony's. How's that?
Okay.
Is that all right?
Sure. You take whichever one you want.
Okay. So this one I haven't read. Tony, I've struggled with alcohol addiction most of my adult life. I'm 43 years old and have now, for the first time in my life, lost the urge to drink, and that's all thanks to the Sinclair Method. Before I continue, I have to tell you that I live in Sweden, and over here the government have a monopoly on the sale of alcohol. It's only sold in special stores called Symbolaget. They close at, I probably butchered that. They close at 7 on weekdays and 5 on Saturdays. On Sundays, they're closed. A typical day for me would be waking up and saying to myself that today I would not get drunk. And I would mean it and feel it in every bone of my body. And I'd keep this feeling until around 5 o'clock when the urge to drink started to creep up on me. Or not even the urge to drink, just a need to go and buy booze in order to feel safe. I'd tell myself that I'd only buy it and not drink it. I would try to fight this urge, but I always found myself losing the battle. Most days I'd be overcome with a sense of panic around 6:30 and just rush down to the Symbolaget and buy my usual 2 liters of wine and 2 bottles of beer. That's what I usually drank each night before getting to sleep. When I got home, I'd feel sick to my stomach, ashamed, and like a complete and utter loser for not being able to hold on for just 30 more minutes for the store to close. At the end, I just started to laugh about it. I woke up saying to myself that today I would stay sober, but then laughing at the mirror as I brushed my teeth, thinking, haha, yeah, right. But then I heard about the Sinclair Method. I contacted my doctor. I got a prescription for naltrexone. The next day, when the urge started to creep up on me around 5 o'clock, I took a pill, not really knowing what to expect. Of course, I was unable to resist my cravings, and around 6:30, I was back home with my daily dose of beer and wine. Started to drink, and about 30 minutes later, I felt that something was wrong. That feeling of safety, calm, and well-being that I always get was gone. Still felt a bit drunkish, but without any positive effects. It's kind of hard to describe. That night, I only drank about half of what I usually consumed before I stumbled to bed. Remember that I kind of felt cheated and betrayed by my old friend alcohol. The morning after, I thought to myself that the whole experience must have been a placebo effect from taking the naltrexone. There was no way one little pill would be that effective and not be the first thing doctors would prescribe when treating alcoholism. Tried it again the same day with the same results. It took all the pleasure and comfort of getting drunk out of the picture. I was curious and fascinated by the effect this pill was having on me. I was still thinking it was a placebo effect in place, so I stopped taking the pill, for science. Started drinking, lost control, and got blackout drunk. After that, I stuck to the pill. One thing that was so great about it was that I could take it before I succumbed to the overwhelming urge to drink. In the beginning, I'd get mad at myself 30 minutes after taking the pill, cursing at myself for ruining the ability to get a nice buzz that evening. I would still drink, But since it no longer gave me almost none of the positive effects, I'd find myself drinking less and less. Before I started taking the pill, I would time myself when I started to drink, making sure that I only drank one beer every 20 minutes and then try to keep that pace. Something that would work for about an hour or so before I started to binge drink. With the pill, I had to force myself to drink. It was no longer a struggle to keep the pace of my drinking down, but rather to drink at all. As the weeks went by, I started to drink less and less. And after a while, I found myself not drinking at all some days because it felt like a waste of time and money. Today, after using the Sinclair method for a couple of months, I've almost stopped drinking completely. I'm no longer obsessed with thoughts or cravings when it comes to alcohol. If I'm going out with friends, I simply take a pill before I go out, and then I can drink 1 or 2 beers that night and go home and sleep like a normal person. The fact that I still drink on such occasions has more to do with the social aspects than anything else. And since I started using TSM, I've also lost about 15 kilos of weight, and I sleep like a baby. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the, for science.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, once again, we go back to that human mind and that lizard brain that tells you, oh, go ahead, drink without it. You'll be fine. Don't you, let's see let's compare what it feels like. You know jolly well what it feels like to get the real buzz without naltrexone. You don't need to test that theory, and if you just hang in there, your brain will get used to it. So yes, but at least he caught himself and went back on it.
Yeah, and part of it's that too good to be true mentality, where it's like, no, this has got to be a placebo effect. It's got to be there's absolutely no way this could be real, because if it were real, doctors would be prescribing it first.
Yeah.
Which is something that we've been saying for years, is why we need doctors to have this in that first tier of options.
Yes, absolutely. And it's also important to point out that people who get a huge reinforcement from alcohol will feel deprived or cheated when they drink on naltrexone. But to keep in mind that with a lot of individuals, that medication does start to sit elsewhere in the brain, and you feel a little bit more of the regular enjoyment. It's just at that point, let's hope that you have an off button. And that's really the point, is it's different for every single person. He, much like Steve in my documentary, felt ripped off. Like, what is this? I'm getting no pleasure from alcohol. Whereas other people I speak to, they have a glass of wine and they go, no, it felt pretty much the same, but I just didn't want any more. So you don't know.
And it sounds like in the beginning, and yes, I immediately, when I was reading this, thought of Steve.
Yeah.
I just thought of him sitting there saying, what's the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
Why do people drink if this is how it makes them feel? And that's very normal for the beginning of the process, because yes, if you suddenly don't feel that, you can feel very let down. But then as he continued on the process, now he's at a point where he can have 1 or 2 drinks, but he's not feeling that, crazy disappointment over it, because he's not expecting it anymore. He's trained his brain not to expect that. And so he can go out and have that drink or 2 socially, just for the social aspect of it, because he's not expecting to get that big boost reward from it. So he doesn't sound like at the end he feels deprived.
No, and it is important for a lot of people, especially in many drinking cultures, to be able to have a beer with their friends. And the fact that he can do that and yet know logically that he really didn't have much desire to do so, it just felt like the thing to do. So that's definitely a very good success story with a lot of self-awareness once again.
So I'm going to take one of the anonymous ones that's here. It says, I approached the Sinclair method with a mix of hope. Well, make that desperation, skepticism, and the strong sense that it was too good to be true. That is a cliche, but it's what I thought. This is too good to be true. I seriously over-imbibed one time in the early months of trying the Sinclair Method, and thought that was an indication that it was silly to have believed for a minute that this might have worked. But somewhat more than 4 months into it, it seems to be working beyond what I had anticipated. In the last month, I've consumed alcohol twice. Once at lunch, 2 restaurant-sized glasses of wine, and secondly, after reception, a bit more than 3 glasses. Yes, I have urges, but they are mild, and I seem to be able to deal with them. I have not been drinking alone at all, and that is pretty amazing. I almost didn't even embark on this. I think one impediment to beginning is that it's hard to believe that it can possibly work. I am slightly surprised that I got past that and actually did it. Thank you so very, very much for the advocacy of this method, for getting the word out, and for making yourself available. By the way, I really, really wanted it to work. And that may be a factor. But I have really, really wanted to establish sobriety before and failed. This is just one experience, and it's the experience of only a few months. But I almost didn't try it because it does go against all orthodoxy. So again, this particular story, it's amazing what can happen when there's such a barrier to the whole this is too good to be true. It's such a wall we're trying to climb over of decades worth of information out there that said you either stop or drink yourself to death. Those are the only two choices. So I really loved that was shared with us, because that skepticism, it's out there. And it can weigh on people. And I think a lot of that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Claudia. I think a lot of the reasons why people are so skeptical that the Sinclair Method will work is a combination of being told that abstinence is the only way, coupled with all previous attempts not actually being treatment, and just and any treatment that they've had not being the right one for them. And so when you failed because the treatment that you have been told is the only thing you can do is failing them. And so fear is kind of ingrained and expected, and failure is expected.
I agree completely. However, I want to insert a little ray of sunshine into this in perspective. If you start TSM today, you have a far more chance of finding thousands of people on TSM, peer support groups, doctors who support it. The fear factor should be diminished far more than it was when us old timers started, because there were not peer support groups of people saying, no, it worked for me, or, anecdotal experience. Oh yeah, it took me 9 months, took me 16 months. So, I know that inherent fear can be there, but let's put that into perspective. You have a whole community out there, people who've been using this successfully. You have an entire country of doctors that are supporting this method. So clearly it's not hogwash. And so in having that stability of knowledge, that group of understanding, I think is a huge boon to your present experience on TSM, as opposed to 20 years ago, those people who yeah, sure, take this pill, it's going to work. Well, what do you mean? There's no books, there's no movies, there's no peer support, there's no information on it, there's no nonprofit devoted to it. So I think that now it should be a lot less restrictive and fearful, but I'm acknowledging that fear still exists. And I'll go back to my previous statement of, I think one of the biggest fears is failing, but also death. You have to understand that so many people like me, my binges were getting so progressively worse. And some of these people in these stories, their binges were getting to the point where they had grand mal seizures when they stop drinking. That is scary. That is potentially, this substance is killing you. Why would you drink again? But you're so desperate to change. You're so desperate to not have cravings so that you don't relapse that you will try anything. So I'm not negating that the fear is unbelievably real. Trust me, I felt it myself when I started TSM. I was petrified it wouldn't work for me. But now please take comfort in the fact that there's a lot of evidence out there and people who are successfully using it.
Yeah, I mean, just between the peer support, the various peer supports that we run, plus the ones that are semi public slash private on places like Facebook that we are aware of, but they're not run under the C3 Foundation. So we're not even talking about any private groups that providers and other TSM professional support systems may have. I would think we've got to be well over 10,000 members at this point.
Yeah.
From all around the world.
Exactly. So take comfort in that. I have one from a police officer in Scotland.
Go for it.
Okay. I am a serving frontline police officer in Scotland. I have 23 years service. I have been a heavy drinker since my 20s. The last 15, most of this drinking was isolated and isolating within the home. However, I managed it by limiting myself to a bottle of wine per day, except days off when there was no limit. And to the outside world and work, all was well. In the last 15 years, I really wanted to cut down, and I tried. I would abstain for a month at a time, and if anything, the cravings got worse. And then I would have earned a drink and rinse and repeat. Every day was a mental battle. To drink or not to drink was the constant mental dialogue within. So I went looking for assistance. The idea of AA, given my line of work, was something I didn't feel would work for me. Likewise, the drug they prescribe to make you feel really ill if you drink on it, that's antabuse, I would have seen as a challenge, and it would have not stopped the cravings. And then I found this site, and I read up on the Sinclair Method and the science behind it. For me, the information about the lab rats was a clincher. They found that rats generally don't like alcohol. To do their tests, they selected the ones which had an affinity to alcohol and used them, got them addicted, then kept them abstinent, only to see that the rats' craving for alcohol had increased during the period of abstinence. This was my experience too. So living in Scotland, the opiate blocker is approved for prescription, and it is just that our GPs don't seem to know about it. When I phoned alcohol abuse charities, they informed me, while at the same time selling residential therapy courses, that it was just for city workers in London who needed to wine and dine and keep a clear head for making deals. Anyway, January 2019, I got a private GP who was professionally comfortable and knowledgeable about prescribing naltrexone. The first month, my drinking was down to medically prescribed acceptable levels. The second month, it was half that. The third month, I had 4 bottles of beer, not on the same night, in total. And the magical part in the above, it did not require much in the way of willpower, a little bit of self-discipline to take the pill beforehand, and a genuine desire to make it work. Since then, nothing, except for last month when, as a deliberate experiment, I drank 1 bottle of very nice red wine in one evening without the pill beforehand. I didn't get a thrill out of it. I struggled to finish it. The next day, I felt yuck, which was a new one on me. And most importantly, in the days to come, I did not want any more. I don't doubt that if I go on holiday and have drinks every night, I will redevelop the addiction, so I won't be doing that. But now when I go to buy food, I'm not thinking, will I buy a bottle of wine? Will I won't? Will I won't? It doesn't even occur. And when I finish work, it's not an all-consuming willpower battle. A real monkey has been taken off my shoulder. So that's interesting that he tried one evening of drinking without the medication and felt so bad the next day. Keep in mind, there are people who will run out of medication, and the first time they drink without naltrexone, they're like, oh, I didn't overdo it. But also keep in mind that you will relearn the addiction, and you will most likely, like from my experience, you will relearn it faster and worse. But so you might have a couple of drinking sessions where you're like, oh, wow, I didn't drink too much. Please don't take that as an open opportunity for you to continue without taking the medication. So, once again, we go back to the experiment methods. But I find it interesting what he mentioned about the city workers in London, because when they first started prescribing naltrexone, nalmefene in the UK, I don't know if any of you know this, but they were touting it as the anti-binge drinking pill, and they were also touting it as it's a 3-pound pill, because that's what it costs. It was costing about £3, so it was like the price of a pint at that point, a good pint of beer, in an expensive area. But they would put people on it, this anti-binge drinking pill, and people would have phenomenal results. But then once the people would come into the NHS and say, here's my drinking has gone down to safe levels, they'd go, okay, you're done. And they would cut them off the medication. So of course, these people ended up not only drinking again, but drinking heavier than ever. So I feel really badly for those individuals who thought that TSM was just a joke and ineffective, because essentially what they did, it was effective, but they were cut off from the medication. So it's that was a really bad social experiment gone wrong.
And that is why I'm so glad that one of our conference speakers is actually speaking about exactly this, and how nalmefene and how it was marketed and all of that.
Oh, is it Nalplan?
No. Daniel.
Oh, Daniel.
Yes. Yeah.
Beuter from Switzerland.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm really glad that he's bringing that international experience, and specifically talking about nalmefene as part of our conference, because as you said, there were a lot of potentials that were missed.
Yeah, a lot of, but the good news is that now there are multiple companies throughout the UK that will also not only service the United Kingdom. There's one in Ireland, Scotland, England, but they can also help people in Europe. So I think we're coming round again, and I do think that it's fairly obvious. I don't think anyone is thinking that the NHS did it properly. I think they realize, oh, that was a social experiment gone wrong. Let's try it right this time. And, much like the Brits always say, chin up, let's try again. So, I think the future looks bright for that part of the world.
Excellent. And hopefully that talk from our conference will add to the discourse internationally and assist in getting nalmefene, because nalmefene is already labeled for TSM use. They don't specifically call it that, but the instructions are perfectly aligned.
Yeah.
So a greater acceptance of that everywhere that it is available would make an enormous difference for hundreds of thousands of people almost immediately.
I agree.
So you want to take one from Journeys?
Sure. How about I read these two back to back. They're short.
Go for it.
One is not a success story, and I thought we should throw one in there. What do you think?
I don't know. What do you think in the chat? Do you think we should throw in a struggle story with all the successes to contrast the difference? Put a yes for Claudia to read the struggle. Or anything? Okay. So yeah, we're getting some, go ahead and balance it out. We're getting some yeses.
Okay.
So go ahead and read them both.
All right. So Carly's story. I'm a 60-year-old female and have been drinking for more than 40 years, with a lot more over the last 15 years, and pretty much every day with a hangover after hangover. I've tried AA, SMART, and rational recovery, looked into acupuncture, hypnotism, read a ton of books on alcoholism, and failed at everything. I was searching on the internet and I found TSM. The very next day, I went to my doctor and was prescribed now and started TSM on October 14th, 2014. I did take 50 milligrams the first day, but had pretty bad side effects that night, so I couldn't even drink. The next evening, I took another 50 again and had bad side effects, but did drink a bottle of wine and another glass. I figured if I was going to be able to take another pill the next day, I'd have to take 12 and a half milligrams, 1/4 of the pill, to get away from the nausea, dizziness, jitters, and the overall feeling of being drugged. I stayed on that 12 and a half milligrams for 6 days to really ease my way into this drug. I do have a very low tolerance for drugs and have had bad side effects over the years on many medications, so maybe it's just me, as I've heard many people do not have any side effects on naltrexone. I upped my dose to 25 milligrams and stayed on that for 3 days. Then I upped it to 50 milligrams and been on that amount for 28 months. Well, I gotta say, I'm sick and tired of drinking and that TSM is not working for me. No new progress at 32 months and very disappointed that TSM didn't work for me, where most people I've contacted on different TSM boards have all had success at some point. So that one is an interesting one because there's two things that stand out to me. And the reason why I put that in the book is because I wanted to talk about side effects at some point. But the fact that she started out at 50 milligrams and went back to 1/4 of a pill and then went back up to 50 milligrams. And it's a long time, 32 months. Let's face it, that is a long time. But the fact that she said that I'm sick and tired of drinking, I think what she meant by that was I'm sick and tired of drinking on naltrexone. I think she's just one of these people that the medication simply is not something that she can metabolize and also just endure. And there are people who genuinely cannot, they just cannot put up with the side effects. And that's a long-term process. I have a client currently who, 7 months in and she's just done with feeling like crap every day. And, I have to say, you can't live like that. 7
Right.
months of feeling crappy. So luckily there's other options and other medications for her. All right. So this is a short little success story from Maria. I stumbled across Claudia's TED Talk about 4 weeks ago, ordered my pills from a pharmacy in India the same day. Please don't do that, folks. You don't have to. I watched her documentary, One Little Pill, and it was the biggest relief I've felt in years. It made complete sense to me. I received my pills in 3 weeks and took 3 days of naltrexone this past weekend. That was all I needed. Everything's absolutely on target. I was seeing that I started drinking every night for the past few years, and I saw that no matter how hard I tried, my cravings were getting stronger and stronger, and willpower was just not working. I own a successful business and work from home, so I could work and get through the day, but I saw a future where the alcohol was something I thought about all the time and couldn't wait to have. It was my reward. Not only do I not even think about taking a drink now, but I swear I feel 5 years younger. I feel that my brain fog has lifted and I have so much more energy. I'm going to an event this Saturday and plan on taking naltrexone an hour before the event because I so get it now that this is a lifelong prescription for me. So this is somebody who actually nipped it in the bud before it became an unbelievably difficult problem. And Jenny, you and I talk about this as a prophylactic, as preventable. This is treatable and preventable AUD. And here is a situation where someone was so self-aware that they saw themselves going down this brutal path of becoming, of that reward maybe becoming not only a habit, but maybe an addiction down the line. And she nipped it in the bud before she became full-blown alcoholic.
Exactly.
Which
and
great.
then she had almost basically immediate results because she didn't have that decade plus, and in some cases multiple decades of struggle while continuing to reinforce the addiction.
Exactly.
And instead got ahead of it and jumped in front of it and said, I know where this road can take me and I'm not going to let it.
Yeah. I really liked her self-awareness and her gratefulness of just realizing, wow, that could have been me. to miss the oncoming truck in your path is such a gift. What a gift. And she's aware of that. Some people just don't realize how fortunate they are to have found this method. I think she gets it, especially with the last line, this is a lifetime prescription.
Right. Right. And that, it's short, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And it's, it goes back to the whole why wait until rock bottom? Why wait until you have destroyed your relationships, lost your job, run into legal problems? If you can, and unfortunately, so many people have done that because they've been told that unless you hit rock bottom, recovery's not going to work for you anyway.
Yeah.
Because you can't want it until you've lost everything.
Yeah, it's such a punitive, horrible way to say to set it up. How much more joyful and rational is it to say to a 20-year-old who recognizes a pattern in their drinking that could be destructive, to say, you know what, I'm not going to turn out like my uncle or my father or my grandfather. I'm going to do something about it now. And think about that, decades of life saved. I mean, I love the fact that she said, I feel younger and more energetic, and you get your life back, and we can prevent people from losing so many years. So
absolutely.
Great.
I mean, I think of it like this. If you're standing there with a friend and you're on the edge of a cliff and your friend starts to slip, are you going to reach your hand out to help now while they're there? Or are you going to say, well, I can't really help you until you've fallen all the way down there, and then I can walk down and do my thing and be a friend? It can be that life and death for people.
It is life and death. And I don't know, I do understand why this started, where we have to punish, we have to wait till people lose everything so that they learn their lesson. Well, I can attest to the fact that having a disorder of the brain, you know very well what you're doing is not helping your life in any way, shape, or form. So once we take out the conscious choice aspect of addiction, that logical, like, why not just stop? Why don't we just remove that, and then we can treat people where they are right now. And if they're even so much as recognizing, once again, going back to what we always talk about, if alcohol is adversely affecting your life in any way, shape, or form, let's do something about it. We can do something about it now. It's not about losing time or life or your job or relationships. It's about fixing it now so that you can enjoy the life you were given. So I love hearing stories like that, where people, she fixed her brain before it got worse, and I'm just thrilled about that.
So we're going to do something a little bit different. We've still got a nice little crowd out there as we finish up. What would our audience like to hear us talk about next week? Ooh. I want to get some suggestions from you guys. And I realized right before you went into those two stories that I've got to fix the delay between when we're speaking and when everybody's actually hearing us speak on Twitch, because I'm saying something, looking at the chat, going, wait, is there anybody listening? And then I realize, oh, wait a minute, they just haven't heard what I've said yet. So
that's not good.
So I apparently, when I uploaded on the new computer at the office, didn't properly readjust my timing so that it would be a little bit more for live. So I'm not going to get anxious as I wait for people to put in the stream chat what they would like to hear us talk about next week. Because as we move closer to the conference, we've got some guests coming in. We're offering our sponsors an ability to come on and talk. We'll have Work It Health, which is one of our co-headline sponsors, is going to be on with us on the 12th. But unlike previous months, I'm trying not to overschedule too quickly because there's going to be a little bit more fluidity to the scheduling and adding in special guests. So, what do you guys want to hear? What topic have we not covered that is a burning question or that you'd like to hear more about? Maybe we've covered the topic and you want to hear some more. Okay, we've got, one is how about ways to help spread the word of TSM? Oh, we could definitely do that next week. What do you think, Claudia?
I think that's a great idea. I have a lot of ideas for people. That would be awesome. And we could start a little mini Crusader campaign to spread the word. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, that one comes from Batmando. So yeah, I like that one. Of course, we've got several Wednesdays in May, so we are still taking suggestions.
You have one on May 12th that I'm working on Guild Wars that day. You have a different guest.
Yes,
right?
I will have, I'm still waiting on the final word of who from Work at Health is going to be on with me that day. But I believe the topic that we settled on for that week is going to be how to something surrounding the communication and staying active when you're using telemedicine as your provider, because that can, it can be a different way of interacting with your provider, especially when you have, some doctors, it's just, it's a doctor's appointment. And then you've got places like Work at Health, RIA, places like SinclairMethod.org. All of these places have a more comprehensive approach where you can get, you can have therapy in it. And so when it's all online, it's a different way of interacting, and some people struggle with that. They don't know when they can ask questions if they don't understand. And so I think that we're talking about all of those aspects of treatment and basically holding your care team accountable as they are holding you accountable to stay compliant to the method.
Probably also, because a lot of people, even though companies like RIA or they make it accessible and you can book meetings. I think a lot of people are afraid to really take advantage of every aspect of their recovery.
And that's why as soon as that topic was, I had them propose a couple of topics, and as soon as I saw that in the email, I'm like, nope, that's it.
Yeah, to give them the confidence to just ask for more and to really dive deep. I think that's great.
Yeah, there are people who have struggled for so long and just been basically crapped upon by the people who were supposed to help them and dismissed and things like that. Unfortunately, there are still people out there in the addiction world who fire their patients and things like that. And so people are afraid that if they speak up and say what they actually need from their care team, that they're going to get pushback. And so that'll be a good one for us to cover. And so we're not getting any more suggestions. So I guess everybody must love the idea of us talking about ways to spread the word.
All right. Well, let's get creative, folks. Put your thinking hats on and let's all come up with some fun ideas.
Yeah. So hope to see you guys all next week. We now have our topic, and Claudia and I will be here at 4. We expect you to be here too, or at least watch the replay when it's over. And for anybody who was here last week, we have highlighted each of the individual questions that we answered into unique files. You can find those, share those. I'm in the process of putting them on our YouTube as well. But we had a really powerful stream last week that I don't know if you realize, Claudia, we went 3 hours last week.
Yeah.
And already I know I have had to share several of those to people who were uniquely asking similar questions. They're so relevant. And that is going to be one of the ways that you can help spread the word is please, if you're listening to us sit here and talk and we say something that really impacts you, first of all, we've got our Twitch set up that you can make clips. Clip them, highlight them, share our highlights, send people to our channel, encourage others to follow and subscribe. Right now we don't want this to just be us sitting here talking to you. We want this to be a community. And wow, thank you, K-Horn. K-Horn just gave 500 cheers. That is wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's wonderful. So yeah, definitely send them back here and we will see you guys next week. Have a safe and wonderful rest of your week and into your weekend. And we will see you next Wednesday.
Take care, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.